We've managed to get Cary Claiborne. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Adial Pharmaceuticals. Their ticker symbol is ADIL. And Sully, what you just said, you can't swing arms without hitting somebody who you know is directly affected with substance abuse or is going through it with a family member, that type of thing. So really great to get Cary on the show with us here today. Cary, thank you so much for the time. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely.
Hey, I got to ask you, you have a new, in conducting due diligence, your AD04 is basically genetically targeted to help in this very area. I want you to take it from the top and talk about this because there's a lot of ears perking up when they see this interview and they're hearing that you're on the air with us.
Yeah, so you're spot on. You definitely did your diligence. So, we are really taking what we consider a novel approach to treating alcohol addiction. So our drug is genetically targeted. So it's not for everyone. So we believe there's no one size that fits all for treating addiction. But what we found in our research that people that have certain genetic biomarkers, our drug AD04, which is a repurposed version of the drug ondansetron at much lower dose, seems to help these people that have this genetic biomarker drink less.
Hey, Cary, let me ask you this. When you say genetically targeted, and you said the word biomarker, so there's a specific genetic trait that one must have for this to affect. And what can you explain the trait in layman's terms? Remember, we're just knuckleheads in here that are trying to do a TV show every day.
No problem. I'm not a scientist either. So for me, I like to boil these things down, kind of make them simple. So there's something called a SNP. It's a single nucleotide polymorphism, which is basically a variation in someone's DNA. There's thousands of them, and people that we target have what's called the AG genotype, and that's in about 14% of the people that we tested, and we tested thousands of people. So it's about 14% of the people that have that. So it's really just part of their DNA. It's a variation in someone's standard DNA, and they typically have this variation. And because of that, this drug, which is a serotonin 3 blocker, so it works in the brain. People that have that genetic marker, for whatever reason, and we still don't fully understand it, but what we do know is that people that have that genetic biomarker, this drug impacts their dopamine reward system. So what that basically does is it lowers their cravings and the impulse to drink. And
So,
if you think about
so my first question would be, and I want to get to the benefits here in a second here, but wouldn't another business model be for you to be the guys that do the genetic testing, or is that already in the works?
that is part of our business model. So we have a proprietary genetic test. And that's the first step. You give somebody that test.
Oh, sure. Now you do. Now that I gave you the big idea. That's brilliant. Because if you have a proprietary advantage on top of potentially an NDA coming out through the FDA, I mean that says everything. I know Mary's got a couple of questions. One last question on that. Is there a certain subset of the population, white, pink, Irish guys like me and Costa? Is it people that are under the age of so and so? Is it a bioethnicity sort of trait, or can you tell, or should everybody just take the test just to make sure?
You just take the test. It could be covers all races, trees colored, so it could be anyone. You don't really know until you take that test, and that's really the first step. And there's a very simple test. We've actually just announced recently that we're moving toward a cheek swab. So historically, our prior studies, you had to take a blood test, but we're moving toward a cheek swab where you literally would be able to mail that test to someone that they could take it at their home, swab it, put it in an envelope, send it in, get tested, and find out if they're a candidate for the drug.
Cary, could you make a drug that calms down my urge to eat a whole pizza? I mean, I
think that's a GLP.
No, you and me both.
Cary Claiborne, the CEO of Adial Pharmaceuticals. Of course, their ticker symbol is ADIL.
So, Cary, I want to explore more about who needs to get tested and when you get tested and have the cheek swab or whatever it is now. So, would it be someone that says, "Hey, I think I have a problem with drinking too much, but I don't necessarily want to give up completely, or I don't want to go to AA or some of these other programs." So, and I just know my dad used to drink or whatever it is, but I don't know for sure that I'm an alcoholic. So they would go to you and you would test for, okay, yes, actually, this is showing you have this genetic marker.
Right.
And then take this therapy that you have that, I know there's something, I think it's called anabuse, that makes you feel sick if you drink alcohol, but it's different than that, right?
You know what else makes you feel sick when you drink alcohol? Too much alcohol.
Too much alcohol. I do know because I don't drink anymore, but yes.
No, but you bring up a really good point. What we found is that most people don't even want to talk about being, having a drinking problem.
Yep.
But when we've done research with physicians on this approach, they say, well, you know what? This is a great way to even open the door.
Yeah.
That discussion will say, I noticed you've been drinking a little more when I'm looking at your meds and your physical results. We have a test. We can give you a test, and if you test positive, we may have a drug that can help you drink less. And they feel like patients will say, hey, you know what? I'd be interested in learning more about that. So it opens the door to that discussion. And then they agree to take the test. And if they test positive, and a big difference for us is it is designed to drink less, because our data says it's not really the occasional drinking that has the problem, that the public is dealing with. It's really the people that are binge drinking, over drinking. That causes all the real problems. So if you can take that drinking down, we think that's really, the successful outcome we're hoping to achieve.
Cary, what about substance abuse, or as Mike said, eating disorders, or whatever? Is this all in one, or is this criteria specific just to alcohol?
No, we think, again, because of the way it works in the brain with, think about how many addictions are driven by cravings and impulsivity. And really, in theory, it can work for any of those. And we're just much farther ahead with alcohol use disorder. But longer term, we think this could apply to things like obesity, overeating, gambling, which I think may ultimately become a much bigger problem in the U.S., and even opiate use disorder.
I have two questions for you, Cary. One is, you mentioned 14% of people you think have this marker. That seems kind of low to me, but I'm just wondering where that number came from.
Yeah, so it really came through all our research. So it's relatively low. Initially, we thought there were 3 or 4 other biomarkers that represented in total about 33% of the patients. But in our last study, we really dug down and said, who did this really work for? Because our last study had mixed results, so we didn't hit the overall endpoint. And when we looked at why didn't we hit it, we saw that some of those biomarkers, they just didn't do as well. They had a pretty high placebo response. And we zeroed in on, well, which one really drove it? And this one AG genotype, this 14%, drove all the performance. So our goal is to get approval first with this biomarker, and then potentially look at some of the others. But 14% of a total estimate of 30 million people in the US alone are estimated to suffer from this. 14% is still a big number. If we can help anybody, it'll be a home run for us.
Agreed.
Cary Claiborne is the CEO of Adial Pharmaceuticals. Their ticker symbol is ADIL. Cary, as far as the FDA is concerned, where is Adial in the whole arc of the story?
Great question. So this summer, we just met with the FDA again. We took them through all our latest results from our last study and what our plans are for the next study. We had a really good meeting, got great feedback from FDA on moving forward with this more narrow patient population. So now we're in the process of submitting to them with the protocol for the next study and the statistical analysis plan that we'll use in that study. And hopefully things stay on track. We'd be beginning that next study mid-year next year. It's going to take a little bit of time to get through this process and get drug manufactured for the study, but that's our goal.
The end game here. Any more capital to be raised in the meantime for the next clinical study, because capital markets are opening up for biopharma finally. Seems like they're in a pretty good place.
Yeah, we definitely will need capital one way or the other. We'll ideally, we'd love a partner, a much larger company that has the balance sheet and the capital that could partner with us on this in return for commercial rights. If we're not able to do that, we will raise enough money on our own to keep this moving along.
Cary, will you come back with us at some point? I mean, I know that we could keep talking about this for the entire show, but you got to promise to come back on the air with us. Fantastic stuff.
No, absolutely. Love talking about what we're doing here. And I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to share what we're doing.
Cary Claiborne, CEO, Adial Pharmaceuticals, ticker symbol is ADIL. Look for their newest drug, Pizza be gone to be on the market soon.